This is the FluoroCarbon Spring rig. It's an interesting little rig that I first used a few years ago on a highly pressured crystal clear gravel pit. As a result, the carp were renowned for being quite riggy at the best of times. So I wanted to use something a little bit different to the norm that I thought might give me a little bit of an edge against these really wary carp. And most of the anglers on there were using lead core, coated braids and so on, which is what I use for the majority of my fishing, but I wanted to use something just a little bit different. So I settled upon fluorocarbon leaders and fluorocarbon hook links. But with fluorocarbon, it doesn't have much stretch, and you have to tie the knots very carefully. So what I wanted to do was try and give it an extra element of stretch on the hook link. Now I'd seen some Drennan swim feeders that have this what we call twizzled section of or boom of power gum that give it an element of stretch and also act as an anti-tangle boom. And I decided to try using it on the fluorocarbon hook link to give it an element of stretch and also act to give it an extra little bit of stiffness to kick it away, to kick the rig away from the lead and lay it out flat. The first time I tried this rig, I caught a nice upper 20 linear from this tricky lake, so it gave me great confidence to carry on using it. Obviously worked. A little while later I took it to an estate lake and caught 5 carp on it up to upper 20s, so again it showed that it worked. So in gin clear water conditions, you know, it really seems to do the trick. Now what I'll do is I'll show you how I tie that in a minute. Firstly I'll show you the rig in its entirety. The hook has a braided hair. Rather than using a stiff fluorocarbon hair, I've used a braided hair which I've literally just whipped onto the hook with a knotless knot, trapped the hair against the bend of the hook with a short section of silicone tube. So I whip it on with a knotless knot, tuck the tag section of the knotless knot back up the hook, and then whip the fluorocarbon over the top of the braided hair knot, again with a knotless knot. So it's very straightforward. So that's very simple, the part of tying the hook on. I'm using a size 7 stiff rigger, which works very well with semi-stiff hook link material, such as this soft ghost fluorocarbon, because with the outturned die, the fluorocarbon can't close up the gape at all as it can do with an inturned die. So that's the hook end. Now I'll show you the really interesting bit, which I just talked about, the spring section that I've added to the fluorocarbon hook link. Now to tie this, it's very easy. So I use 12 soft ghost fluorocarbon for this rig, and literally to tie the spring boom, you just once you've tied your hook on, I usually have the overall length of the hook link about 10 to 12 inches long. So allow that plus an extra 4 to 5 inches to tie the boom section. So that's, for argument's sake, the hook link, and that's the tag end. So holding it in each hand, just form a loop by folding it over like that, and then by twisting the thumb and forefinger on each hand in opposite directions, you can twist the fluorocarbon down upon itself to form this spring-like section. I usually like to have about 2.5 to 3 inches on the hook link, and this acts as like a good shock absorber by adding that element of stretch. Now just to tie this off, I use a figure of 8 knot. And that's it. Just tighten that down. Trim off the tag end. So that's the spring boom. So you can see that adds quite a large amount of stretch. You can see that it's stretching and contracting just like a spring. And not only that, it stiffens it up, so it kicks the hook link out away from the lead. I attached it to the swivel. You can use this either with a helicopter rig or a lead clip rig. So I just use a little clip link, sleeve with a bit of silicone tube, and that's the finished rig. So you can see it's just gives it an extra bit of impact resistance. All fluorocarbons have a light refraction the same as water, so it's virtually invisible. Lays flat on the bottom, and it just works really well. And as an extra edge in gin clear lakes where the carp can be a little bit wary, a little bit pressured, and could be maybe a little bit shy of more conventional hook link materials and so on, fluorocarbon in those situations could be a major edge, so it's well worth giving it a go.